the Dogman of Washington Heights. Dear Scary Stories NYC. People say there are no dogmen in New York City. In fact, I've even read the owner of this channel saying exactly that thing. If that's true, then explain how I not only saw one of the cryptids right here in the city, but also please explain how it chased me through one of the city's most notoriously long and dangerous tunnels. To those who say it would be impossible for a dogman to even exist in Manhattan, let alone give people who live here trouble, it's possible you don't know much about the Manhattan that exists north of Harlem. It's almost half the island up there, but since that's the half near the Bronx, nobody talks about it all that much. It's not as famous as 42nd Street or Greenwich Village, and it's definitely not as glamorous. But it's really there, and all of us millions living uptown are real human beings, same as our richer neighbors to the south. Uptown, we have the Cloisters, which is a medieval church and its grounds shipped brick by brick over from Europe. We have large parks, like Fort Tryon Park and the even larger Inwood Park. Inwood is really just a lot of undeveloped land for the most part. You can wander in there and do a 360-degree spin, not seeing anything at all made by human beings. You can actually get lost in there if you try. I'm not saying it's like having Yosemite or the Grand Canyon in your city, but it is a fairly large wild area within walking distance of where my story took place. I did not personally think that the wild areas of northern Manhattan are vast enough to maintain a small population of predators as large as the Dogman, but I do think there is enough natural area to attract animals down from upstate as they meander around looking for food throughout the course of the year. We do get coyote here, and now raccoons are regularly seen in the hood. When my dad was a kid right here in this neighborhood, he told me there were no raccoons. They've moved in during my lifetime, and I'll be 40 if I live one more year. In one of the parks here, and I won't name which, there are indigenous people growing food crops, which is not legally allowed. One morning I walked in there and saw a farmer singing a magical chant to his corn plants. He stopped to stare at me, not knowing if I was a cop or something. Upper Manhattan is a different kind of place from most of the rest of New York City. Now that I've made my admittedly weak case for how the Dogman could actually migrate through the upper part of the island in some years, I don't think they're here every year. I'm going to tell you about the scariest tunnel that I dislike in all of New York City, and how I nearly got eaten by the Dogman in that very tunnel. I made this little screen capture clip for you to try to demonstrate the elevation differences in Upper Manhattan. There is an area called Washington Heights because George Washington built a fort there to fight the British. He chose that land because it's the highest point in all of New York City. It didn't help him win, as the British soon seized the fort and Washington had to flee to New Jersey. But you can still see parts of the original fort wall surrounding Fort Washington Park on 155th Street. Upper Manhattan has some very tall hills and some very deep valleys, so that in places you have to walk up or down tall staircases just to get to the next block over. One of the manifestations of this phenomenon is the incredibly long and terrifying tunnel between 190th Street station of the A train and the 191st Street station of the 1 train. In that tunnel, you can travel from the deep valley that the 1 station is located in, all the way to the bottom of the hill that the A station is on top of. The only trouble is that in my entire life, I've never seen one single cop inside that tunnel, whereas I see teenagers on skateboards and scooters flying through there at top speeds daily. Even when I was young, I regarded walking through that tunnel as taking my life in my hands, as it has never felt safe, and I don't see how it ever could. It's just too long to police it, honestly. Abandon all hope, ye who enter this tunnel of fear. These days, of course, they have colorful graffiti painted nearly the entire way, paid for by the city, to brighten up the scene that you will be mugged in. If you're lucky, you'll get mugged by the same kids who painted the graffiti mural, and maybe you can get their autograph. If you're unlucky, well, use your imagination. So one night I went to see a friend's band play all the way out in Queens. They don't seem to want people from Upper Manhattan getting their entertainment in Queens, and so there was literally no direct way home, and it was nearly dawn by the time I got back uptown and was about to walk that tunnel gauntlet yet again. There was nobody else in that tunnel in those pre-dawn hours, and believe me, I really and truly mean nobody. My footsteps echoed, as if calling out to any potential muggers that my cash and me were on their way, ready for the taking. I felt like I was holding up a big sign reading, "Please mug me." Still, as I said, when I entered the long tunnel, there was literally nobody there, except for me. In those days, the only graffiti on the walls was placed there illegally. There were no murals yet, or at least not running all through it like now, as this was very, very long ago. Like, maybe the late 90s or early 2000s? I don't remember exactly, but it had to be after 1994, and it had to be before 2005. Back then, it felt like you were in some forgotten underground government tunnel that was probably leading to where they make the chupacabras. It was scary, even for me, and I had never lived any other place than right here. Then again, I'd always been a goody two-shoes, never carrying a weapon, never getting involved with the gangbangers and their secret languages. So, when I thought I heard the sound of dog nails clicking on the concrete floor of the tunnel behind me, I expected to turn around and see someone walking their pit bull or other big pet dog. People get dogs to protect them where I live, or else they get dogs to attack others. But when I turned around to look on that night, I didn't see a big man walking a big dog. I saw a big man that was a big dog. Imagine you're in a very, very long tunnel that has no exits, no side tunnels. It's just one long, long walk to get to elevators that take you up to the top of the hill. You have the choice of walking forward or doubling back, but that's it. Now there's an incredibly tall man with a dog head behind you, so that only leaves one option: run. I sped up, turning around to see if that big guy was gonna speed up when I did. At first he didn't, so I just kinda kept trying to walk faster than he was walking without actually running. Running might make me look scared. I was going more for a look of, being in a hurry. Don't let anyone know you're afraid of them if you are. It gives them a distinct advantage. And if they're a big, naked, hairy, dog-headed man, then this rule applies even more so. I tried not to stare. I tried not to make eye contact. I tried not to make it explicitly clear that I was looking back at that guy. I wanted to act normal about it, but there's nothing normal about a big, hairy animal that stands up on its hind legs and ambles forward like he's John Wayne. This guy had that kind of a walk, Have you ever seen an old John Wayne movie? He walks like his crap don't stink. He walks like he knows he's the star of the picture. Well, this big old Dogman knew he was the star of this story, and so he walked like a big shot, like he was John Wayne. There was one thing about him that was definitely nothing like John Wayne, though, and that was his incredibly long fingernails. Uptown, we have nail shops that ladies go into and get super long monster nails for when they're going to a big event. This Dogman had nails like that, but his nails ended in points, and they didn't look like they would break very easily either. These things looked hard and thick, like dog's nails, but they ended with those sharp fishhook-looking ends that you see on cat nails. This dog looked like he could use those extra-long nails to slice a loaf of bread for you, or to slice you up like a loaf of bread, perhaps. I saw him make his paws or claws into fists, and I saw him flexing the claws too. I got the impression that when he would ball his fists up too tightly, he would hurt himself with his own claws, and that was why he occasionally opened and flexed the hand-like claws. I can't say that for a fact because, let's face it, I was taking quick glances and trying to act as nonchalant about all this as I could manage. In New York City, you learn from a young age not to act scared, no matter how scared you might be. Sure, there was an 8 or 9 foot tall, upright walking prehistoric wolf predator following me through a long tunnel with no exits, but that's no reason to act panicked. At least that was the vibe I was trying to give to my pursuer. I wasn't afraid of him. I wasn't threatened by him in the least. Meanwhile, inside, I felt like I was going to faint the entire time. I felt like my knees were going to collapse underneath me. I wanted to cry, but I told myself to act like nothing was wrong. I'm a New Yorker. This is how we are raised to act in a crisis. While I was looking at him with the corner of my eye, I kept noticing his eye shine. That really bothered me as much as his size, because human beings don't have eye shine. I had been operating under the assumption that this had to be a human. It was taller than I was. It walked on 2 legs. It had to either be a human in a costume, or it had to be a human born with the affliction of having animal hair all over. But then I glanced back and noticed the big guy's legs and feet. Those were more like the hind legs of a dog than they were like the hind legs that you and I walk on. He didn't use them the way a dog uses them, though. He somehow was able to walk gracefully on those 2 legs and look natural doing it. When I saw that, I began to wonder if this might be a werewolf, and I admit that made me shiver all over. It could very well have been a shaman or sorcerer shape-shifted into this skinwalker or werewolf kind of creature. It might even have been that farmer I heard chanting those sacred songs while growing corn illegally in the city park that day. When I glanced back with the intention of sneaking a look at the creature's eyes, that was when I went too far. I looked at him, and he was already looking at me. His glowing eyes met mine, and I felt a pain inside my skull that I don't even know what to compare to. It hurt, like he was firing at me from his eyes. I don't think that's literally what happened. I'm just saying that was the sensation at the time, like he was burning the back of my eyes and my brain itself just by looking at me. So then I ran. I ran out of fear, or maybe I should say I ran out of complete terror. I hadn't wanted to run because I didn't want to look like prey. At this stage of the game, however, there was no use denying it any longer. That was exactly what I was. Either I was going to end up his prey, or I was going to escape. I was his intended prey, and the entire rest of my life melted away. There was not going to be a morning if I did not get away from this beast who walked like a man. I was either about to experience the painful end of my life on Earth, or I was going to have quite a story to tell on the following day. There was no longer anything in between those 2 options. I didn't turn around anymore. I knew what he looked like by then. Dark fur, like a black bear, 8 or 9 foot in height. Arms more like a man's than a dog's. Broad, weightlifter's chest covered in this fur like a canine. Tall, triangular-shaped ears on top of a black German shepherd-type head. Teeth, too large to even fit inside his prehistoric-looking snout that drooled constantly. This wasn't something I should have been seeing walking around. This was something I should have been seeing in nightmares after I got home and went to bed. I ran through that tunnel until my side hurt, and then I ran some more. I was aware I was losing speed as I was tired out, but I was too afraid to look behind me any longer. I could hear the beast behind. It didn't sound like I ever gained on him, but it didn't sound like he was gaining on me either. I made it to the turnstiles with the elevators beyond. Amazingly, 2 city cops were out there having a conversation. I ran up to them and was so out of breath that it took me some time to get out my words that I was being followed. Both cops laughed at me, mocking my panic. "There's nobody here now, buddy," they humored me. Sure enough, nobody had followed me through the turnstiles. One of the cops walked back with me and we peered down that long hallway. No Dogman as far as we could see. He must have turned back at some point. I warned the cops that he was still there in the tunnel. He didn't catch me, but he was gonna catch the next guy. The cops listened to me beg them to send police into that tunnel and search out the big dog-headed guy. I remember saying, "You can't miss him. He's really big," and getting a laugh from the police who didn't believe a word I said. When I was done ranting, they told me they could give me a breathalyzer test and take me in, but then we'd all be sitting around for a day or more. Them filling out paperwork and me sitting in one jail cell before being moved to the next and the next. The other option they told me was that I go home and sleep off whatever bender it takes to see werewolves in Upper Manhattan. I chose the second option. But I know I only had 2 drinks that night, and I was very sobered up by the 3 hours of subway waiting and riding it had taken to get back to the Heights. I knew I wasn't tired enough to be hallucinating, and I knew that what had happened had been something weird, but still something very real. I avoid that tunnel when I can, although sometimes it's unavoidable. I have walked it 3 or 4 times over the years since then. I admit I enjoy much of the artwork on the walls these days, but I'll never feel normal inside there ever again. And that's because that tunnel is where I encountered and got chased by the Dogman of Washington Heights. If the real thing don't do the trick, you better make up something real quick. You're gonna burn, 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 burn to the wick. Oh, Ron Barracuda. Please join us in thanking today's executive producer, Ron Barracuda, for making this episode possible. Ron gets lots of our perks, including our secret, uncensored Dogman stories, far too wild to ever run on this channel, and so can you. Here's international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman to fill in the rest of the deets. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com, and that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.